very good evening to you. This is Newsfirst Primetime News on TV1 on Monday. Today is the 6th of December 2021. For the Newsfirst team, I am Jayama Ratnayaka. Let's start off our bulletin with a look at the headlines for tonight.
Newsfirst Headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Drops 11 charges in second bond scam case and says a company cannot be prosecuted under the Public Property Act. Remains of the late Priyantha Kumara, who was lynched by a mob in Pakistan, brought to Colombo. Samagi Janapala Vege boycotts parliamentary sessions today. Demands to ensure the safety of MPs. New polythene seals for gas cylinders. Agriculture Minister says China agreed to solve fertilizer issue in Sri Lanka, but the Chinese company says otherwise. MP Partali Champika reveals of an attempt to hand over 3 northern islands to the Adani Group.
මේක අතිශයින්ම බරපතල ප්‍රශ්නයක්.
Newsfirst Headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
In our top story for tonight, the Colombo Permanent High Court trial at bar accepted an argument raised by counsel, noting that a case cannot be filed against Perpetual Treasuries Limited under the provisions of the Offences Against Public Property Act with regard to the second bond scam. Accordingly, the court ruled that 11 of the 22 charges in the case cannot be carried forward. The Attorney General has filed the case with the Colombo Permanent High Court trial at bar under the provisions of the Public Property Act, Penal Code, Registered Stocks and Securities Ordinance and several other legislations, alleging that fraud of 15 billion rupees was committed at the Central Bank Treasury Bond auction on the 31st of March 2016. The first accused in the case was Perpetual Treasuries Limited, and the other 9 defendants included former Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake, fugitive former Central Bank Governor Arjuna Mahendran, beneficial owner of Perpetual Treasuries Limited Arjun Aloysius, and Perpetual Treasuries Limited's Kasun Palisena. President's counsel Anil De Silva, appearing for Chittaranjan Hulugalla, the 7th defendant in the case and a director of Perpetual Treasuries Limited, pointed out that action cannot be filed against a company which is a corporate entity under the Public Property Act. The President's counsel, citing examples from India, argued his position in court. Colombo High Court trial at bar held that public property charges against the accused cannot be maintained. The counsel also argued that as the complaint is based on the first charge, it is not possible to maintain the charge against the other defendants. Accordingly, the Colombo Permanent High Court trial at bar, comprising Justices Amal Ranaraja, Namal Balalle and Aditya Patabendige, decided to drop 11 out of the 22 charges against the defendants. Subsequently, Senior Additional Solicitor General Priyantha, appearing for the Attorney General, said that sufficient time is required to inform the court to consult the Attorney General and amend the charges or for the relevant actions that need to be taken. Thereafter, the bench decided to call up the case on the 26th of January 2022 in order to hear the Attorney General's stance on the matter. Hence, the cross-examination of the case was also postponed indefinitely. In addition to this case, 2 other cases are pending at 2 permanent High Court trials at bar in connection to the 688 million rupee bond transaction that took place on the 27th of February 2015 and the 36.98 billion rupee bond transaction that took place on the 29th of March 2016. The remains of the late Priyantha Kumara, who was lynched in Sialkot, Pakistan, were flown into the country today.
The late Priyantha Kumara was brutally murdered on the streets of Wazirabad in Sialkot, Pakistan on last Friday. His remains were flown to Sri Lanka today at the expense of the state. According to our correspondent, the remains were flown to the country on a Sri Lankan Airlines carrier at about 5 this evening. The remains of the late Priyantha Kumara were then taken to the Negombo General Hospital.
The remains of late Priyantha Kumara arrived a short while ago at the Bandaranaike International Airport, and the expenses were borne by the Sri Lankan government. According to reports we received, the remains are to be handed over to the family of late Priyantha Kumara.
The Pakistan government has launched a comprehensive investigation into the killing, and more than 230 suspects have been arrested in relation to the incident. The main 13 suspects have been produced before the Sialkot court, and they are to be produced before the anti-terrorism court in Gujarat. The late Priyantha Kumara obtained his Bachelor's of Engineering from the University of Peradeniya and migrated to Pakistan for employment 11 years ago. Priyantha was a resident of Kantalay in Ganemulla and was a father of 2 at the time of his untimely demise. Issuing a release, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that steps are already underway to claim compensation for the family of the late Priyantha Kumara. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan in a tweet said that the Pakistani national named Malik Adnan, who tried his utmost best to protect the late Priyantha Kumara, will be awarded the second highest civil award for bravery in Pakistan. Issuing a statement, the Askeri and Malwatu chapters of the Siam sect has expressed their condolences regarding the incident. The statement notes that the perpetrators behind the incident must be brought before the law immediately. The statement further noted that the government must take action to obtain compensation for the family of the late Priyantha Kumara from the Pakistan government. The Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, says that he was deeply shocked and saddened to hear of the brutal killing of Priyantha Kumara Devadana by extremists in Pakistan. He condemned the brutal and inhumane killing and said that the leaders of all countries should work tirelessly to end such heinous acts of extremist violence under the guise of religion. The Cardinal emphasized that the worst tragic situation in the world is when extremists kill people to achieve their personal and political goals in the name of religion. Leader of the opposition, Sajith Premadasa, visited the family of the late Priyantha Kumara today to express his condolences.
I trust that a progressive leader like Prime Minister Imran Khan will strictly enforce the law in a timely manner in this regard. We hope to do our best to further strengthen that trust. Not only that, but we will also look after the family and children of Priyantha Kumara.
Several public representatives and civil activists visited the residence of the late Priyantha Kumara to express their condolences. Minister of Foreign Affairs Professor G.L. Piris, commenting on the lynching of late Priyantha Kumara in Pakistan, says the government will ensure the safety of the victim's family.
Pakistani Agramatya Imran Khan.
We spoke to Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan and Pakistan's Foreign Minister Qureshi regarding this matter in the past few days while we were in Abu Dhabi. The leaders of Pakistan gave a very clear message to the leaders of Sri Lanka that the people of Pakistan condemn this act unanimously. At the same time, the Prime Minister of Pakistan stated that the maximum level of criminal law in the country will be enforced against all those involved. The government of Sri Lanka will continue to work with the Pakistani government to ensure the financial security of the victim's family, including taking the relevant measures with regard to the future of the victim's children.
The media briefing was held to commemorate the 3-month anniversary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna media unit. The Janata Vimukti Peramuna also expressed its views on the brutal murder of the late Priyantha Kumara.
The government of Pakistan must impose the highest level of punishment against the perpetrators behind this act. The Pakistani government must also ensure the safety of all Sri Lankan citizens residing in Pakistan. Furthermore, the government of Sri Lanka has a responsibility to repatriate all Sri Lankan residents in Pakistan if the Pakistani government fails to ensure the safety of Sri Lankans. As a political movement, we will take all possible measures to defeat this insanity of religious extremism.
A group of civil activists, political party representatives and religious leaders handed over an epistle to the Pakistan High Commission in Colombo today. Representatives of the Multi-Religious Council in Sri Lanka handed over an epistle to the Pakistan High Commission this morning as well. There must be an organized approach to educate not only Sri Lanka and Pakistan but the entire Asian region to prevent such brutal and inhumane crimes committed in the guise of race and religion. The entire world is shocked to hear the brutal killing of the late Priyantha Kumara. We highly condemn this crime that was committed in the guise of Islam. While we express our deepest condolences over this gruesome crime, we would like to humbly request all Sri Lankans not to stir any racial tensions in the country. We have to live in harmony. Please do not breach the peace and harmony we have in this country. A group of backbench MPs also met with the Pakistan High Commissioner to Sri Lanka as well.
More news follows after this short commercial break. Stay tuned to News First.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Welcome back to the news. Members of Parliament representing the Samagi Janabalawegaya boycotted today's parliamentary sitting. They claimed that the ruling party members had exerted pressure on the party MPs last Friday and Saturday. Meanwhile, Speaker informed Parliament today that the committee comprising senior members of the ruling and opposition factions would be appointed this week to look into the incidents and submit a report. If you took this incident seriously, it happened on Friday and you had time till Sunday. You should have come to Parliament as a matter of urgency, summoned the secretaries, looked at the recordings and decided what had happened. Because you are the authority, you are responsible. But now, Prime Minister, a definite question has arisen. This needs a definite solution. Without a definite solution, it is impossible to conduct the affairs of Parliament. The authority of the Speaker should be established in Parliament. This incident happened in the evening. There was an island-wide power outage. This is something quite serious. The Parliament did not have power either. The members of the opposition have lost their sanity after the power outage. Manusha Nanakkara spoke to you in a derogatory manner and came here to attack you. He did not carry a board saying he was going up there to hold a discussion. We must protect you. No one will be allowed to attack you while we are here. I think the freedom that you provide has been taken for granted by this house. There was a time where the name of the president could not be mentioned in this house. It has come to a state where the president can be called a madman. They have misused the freedom granted by you. You are too lenient. The group came together this morning to attack Minister Kanchana Wijesekara. He also came from that side today. If they can come there in the morning and eat at the canteen, why can't they come in? When we checked the parliamentary canteen, 34 opposition MPs had gone there for breakfast. Even Kumara and Herath left now to have breakfast. Over 30 opposition members have had breakfast from the canteen but are not in Parliament. The statement made regarding Vijita Herath and myself is completely wrong. Please withdraw that statement. Do you have any responsibility? We are trying to uphold the dignity of Parliament. If you want, we can speak about all your assets and the deals that have been struck. We can tell you about it. So do not vilify us. The Provide me with the opportunity to ask that question. This minister is making statements without any responsibility. All his lies are being revealed as soon as he makes a statement. We would like to ask to make statements that would at least remain true for a minute.
The Samagi Jana Balawega MPs who boycotted the parliamentary proceedings today engaged in a protest at the parliament premises today.
මනුෂ්‍ය නානක්කාර මැතිතුමාට පහුගිය දිනවල එතුමගේ කතාවෙන් පසුව ආණ්ඩුවේ මැති ඇමතිවරුන් ගණන.
Following a speech by MP Manusha Nanakkara, ruling faction MPs attempted to hurt him physically. We demand an investigation into this matter. The speaker should take action against each and every ruling faction MP who came to attack him. We are not cowards. However, we will stand for our right for expression. We cannot accept this behavior. We urge the Honourable Speaker to take action in this regard. At a time of this unruly behavior of the ruling party MPs, the Samagi Jana Balawega will lead the endeavour of securing the democratic right of the people as well as the public representatives of this country.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa met with the members of the Samagi Jana Balawega who were protesting opposite the parliament today. The Prime Minister's office said that the Prime Minister had told the parliamentarians that more members should be involved in organising a protest. The Prime Minister's office further added, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa looked at the members of parliament who had joined him in political struggles in the past and reminded them of how such struggles had taken place.
The debate on the expenditure heads of several ministries, including urban development and housing, was conducted in Parliament today without the presence of Samagi Jana Balawega MPs, including the leader of the opposition and chief opposition whip.
යෝජනා නොවන නිසා අපි සභාවේ අවශ්‍යතාවය සඳහා ශීර්ෂ සියල්ලම ඉදිරිපත් කරමු. සියපත මහල් නිවාස ව්‍යාපෘති යටතේ
Apartment complexes with 100 units each will be constructed in all electorates under the Siapata apartment project. I am also happy to announce that 10,000 houses for the estate community will be constructed from 2022 onwards under the program funded through Indian aid. The key factor that has given rise to this debate is the conduct of the minister in charge of housing during the previous regime. He had utilized the ministry and its processes to further his political reputation and to achieve his political ambitions. Based on the documents here relating to the period between 2015 to 2019, billions of rupees allocated to these institutions have been squandered.
Meanwhile, the following views were expressed at the SJB party office today by MPs who were hoping to have the opportunity to speak in Parliament.
We will convene outside Parliament and express our views regarding the expenditure heads discussed today. On the outset, it must be noted that State Minister Indika Anuruddha had not arrived in Parliament to apprise the House of the progress he made, but to vilify the opposition and disappoint the general public further. They claimed 14,000 houses will be constructed in each division. There are 46 divisions in my electorate alone. I do not know if houses were constructed. They were unable to uphold the parliamentary tradition followed during the committee stages of the budget debate. The processes which would have ideally been carried out by the opposition were done by the government. The legality of it is questionable. It is pointless appointing committees to decide on what measures are to be taken on threats and impending assaults. What must be done is reviewing CCTV footage and taking action based on those. We will not bow down to the government's threats. We will not hesitate to do the right thing for the betterment of the people of this country.
Meanwhile, the members of the Samagi Jana Balawega staged a protest in Galle today, demanding to ensure the safety of opposition MPs inside Parliament. Following a protest march to the Samanala grounds in Galle, the group staged a protest opposite the bus station.
If an MP can't speak the truth about the country inside parliamentary chambers, what hope does an ordinary citizen have of getting justice by speaking the truth? You did not get aggravated when the farmers lost fertilizer, when the people lost sugar, wheat flour and gas. You get angry when the truth is spoken. The government can't hide their embarrassment. Government MPs can't walk on the streets or go to the village. They can only show off inside Parliament because of the two-thirds majority.
Showery conditions witnessed in several areas of the island have caused rivers, waterfalls and reservoirs to overflow, resulting in rapid changes in water currents. However, certain individuals who disregard these risks continue to bathe and swim in bodies of water despite warnings. As a result, 4 deaths due to drowning were reported over a 24-hour window in the country. 3 people remain missing, with the most recent incident of a string of such incidents taking place last evening.
5 people of the same family went bathing in the Nillamba Oya in Peradeniya upon checking the water levels where it was at a favourable level for bathing.
ඔය බලලා උම වතුර අඩු වෙලා තිබ්බොත් නාගෙන යන්න කියලා ආපු කට්ටිය. එතකොට එකපාරට වතුර ඇරලා ඒගොල්ලන් දන්නෙත් නෑ. එතකොට පස්තරාව ගහගෙන ගිහිල්ලා.
22-year-old Mohammed Rifaz died after being swept away in the currents. Search operations are still underway to locate 19-year-old Fatima Afra and 2-year-old Fatima Alia. Two of the family members who were rescued are receiving treatment at the Gampala hospital. 3 people who went bathing in the sea off the coast of Mullaitivu died after drowning. The victims are aged 26, 27 and 28, were residents of Vaunia. The body of one person was discovered last afternoon, and the remains of the other 2 victims were found this afternoon upon a search operation. Another person is reported missing after he was carried away by a strong current while bathing in Garandiyalla in Valandura Kuruvita. Search operations are underway to locate the victims, who is the father of 2 and a resident of Millavita Kuruvita. Search operations to locate the remains of the victim is underway.
Economists believe that the private sector in Sri Lanka is more powerful than farming communities in making significant changes in policies. These state sentiments were expressed at the Sri Lanka Economic Summit 2021, organized by the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce.
Because the current path is based on, increasing pain to the local economy and providing high returns. But even on this path, right, in the best case, even if you don't default, it's going to take 5+ years before Sri Lanka can get its credit ratings up and stop putting pressure on the local economy. Whereas a restructuring is highly likely to have a much higher probability of success in getting your reserves up, getting your credit ratings up, and it can be done probably in a faster path of recovery. This fourth solution is that private sector in Sri Lanka, we say, is accustomed to living in a broken system. I mean, the farmers found a way to come together, surprise, and ultimately ask for a retreat and a reversal of government policy, even though it was too little and too late. I believe the private sector in Sri Lanka is more powerful than the farmers. And if they don't come together to get a significant change in policy, then what happened with chemical fertilizer may be a good study in how things are going to play out. The goal cannot be to maximize the potential for political patronage of the government in the way it spends its money. The goal must be, I think, to minimize the pain for Sri Lankans as a whole and the Sri Lankan economy, and repaying the debt.
The 2-day summit was graced by the Minister of Finance Basil Rajapaksha and was attended by distinguished guests representing multiple sectors. Various views were expressed on government debt, management and monetary policy during the event.
I know a lot of people have been talking about it. So when you have concerns like that, we need to have a proper plan to deal with that. Particularly the external debt, we have taken steps to ensure that we deal with it fairly and squarely. People think that the only solution is to go to some outside agency. I think it's time for us to understand that there are ways in which we can do it ourselves. Country must look at the debt profile and see where are the vulnerabilities. What can we do in order to reduce those vulnerabilities? And that is exactly what Sri Lanka is doing now.
The source of Sri Lanka's problems in terms of its foreign debt problem and debt servicing problem, in terms of its low economic growth, is a lack of industrialization. I'm not one of these, what they call MMTs, modern monetary theorists, that believe you can just go around printing whatever money you want and everything is fine. Okay, that I think is equally nonsensical and absurd.
According to the central bank, Sri Lanka has printed more than 676 billion rupees since the beginning of this year.
Taking a look at another headline-making story for tonight, authorities have decided to change the colour of the polythene seal on gas cylinders when issuing stocks to the market in a bid to confirm the quality assurance of gas cylinders.
The Consumer Affairs Authority issued instructions to release stocks of gas cylinders which are on par with accepted standards. Hence, the companies have begun following the instructions of the Consumer Affairs Authority as of this morning. Steps have been taken to issue gas cylinders with a special seal. The seal placed on litro gas cylinders will bear red letters on a white background. A yellow seal has been added on LAF's gas cylinders. None of the companies objected to these steps. However, gas-related explosions are still being reported in several areas of the country. 69-year-old Chandra Kumari, who was injured in a gas-related accident, succumbed to her injuries in Udupihilla, Matale today. Police said that she was admitted to the hospital on the 19th of last month when her body was caught on fire while lighting a gas stove. Police said that the post-mortem report confirmed that the woman had died of burns and heart-related complications. Gas leaks were reported in 2 houses at the Norwood industry estate. Police intervened and removed the gas cylinders from the 2 houses. Another gas explosion was reported from a house in Palgampala, Akmimana last evening. Another stove was caught on fire at a house near the Hittite Junction in Panala last evening. No casualties were reported. A gas explosion was reported at an eatery in Badegama this afternoon. A gas leak was reported from Servila in Kantalay at 8 p.m. last night.
Much like domestic gas, electricity too has become a household problem. The Ceylon Electricity Board says that power outages from 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. will take place due to the dysfunctional state of the Norwood electricity generators. Meanwhile, the Senior Electricity Engineers Association of the Ceylon Electricity Board says that there is a connection between the power outages and the trade union action.
protection setting.
There is something called the protection setting in the electrical lines. We began controlling them electronically through a computer. We arranged that development during COVID-19. We were able to link it to the laptops of the engineers. The action that was carried out by one person was able to be done by a few. There is a suspicion as to whether this was done through this, since everyone had access. Conduct an independent investigation. After an investigation, we can identify who was involved in this. We have a suspicion. Meanwhile, former Minister Partly Champika Ranawaka revealed information about an attempt to hand over a wind power generating project to the Indian Adani Group. Chairman of the Ceylon Electricity Board sent a letter to the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance on the 25th of November. The third sentence of the letter cites that 500 megawatt wind and solar power from Mana to Punagari in the northern province will be handed over to the Adani company. Remember that the demand for electricity in the country at night is more. That demand is lower than 3000 megawatts. Mana to Punagari has the capacity to generate electricity through solar and wind for the entire country. Now the Ceylon Electricity Board has called for tenders regarding this matter. A large group took part in that tender process. They are planning to give this to the Indian Adani Group by disregarding everyone else.
Gas, electricity, petroleum and many other day-to-day requirements of the general public have become problems rather than solutions. The Minister of Energy Udaya Gamampila stated on the 15th that by closing the Sapugaskam, the oil refinery for 50 days, the limited foreign exchange spent on crude oil imports could be directed to import essential items such as petrol, diesel, medicine, food and gas. The refinery will reopen tomorrow after 22 days to refine a consignment of crude oil that arrived in the country on the 3rd. The Astros Sculptor, a crude oil tanker, set sail for Sri Lanka on the 22nd of last month. This was after 7 days since the announcement to shut down the Sapugaskanda refinery for 50 days was made. The ship had arrived near the Colombo port on the 30th of last month. It has been reported recently that the long-term crude oil supply tender has been cancelled, and the chairman of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, Sumit Vijay says that no emergency purchases have been made. On what basis was this crude oil tanker purchased? Did the ship arrive in Sri Lanka without a payment?
Now, the fertilizer crisis in the country has been largely attributed to a Chinese fertilizer vessel that was allegedly carrying contaminated manure or organic fertilizer. What is the progress on that story? Let's take a look.
Evident that no solution has been sought for the fertilizer crisis in the country. Meanwhile, the Chinese vessel carrying fertilizer has weighed anchor and set sail to Singapore, where arbitration to settle the dispute is to take place. According to the Minister of Agriculture, the Chinese fertilizer company in question had initially agreed to have any compensation claim to be arbitrated in Sri Lanka. However, the Deputy General Manager of China's Qingdao Sivin Biotech Company has challenged this narrative. The Chinese company in seeking $8 million in compensation from Colombo Commercial Fertilizer Limited through an arbitration centre in Singapore. The company argues that Sri Lanka has violated the contract for the organic fertilizer purchase, while the compensation sought by the company covers several costs, including production, freight and demurrages. The Chinese company is also seeking an order for Sri Lanka to pay all arbitration costs, including its legal fees and other expenses. The $8 million claim includes interest. Responding to inquiries from Newsfirst, Agriculture Minister Mahindananda Alutkamage said his ministry had reached an agreement with the Attorney General to increase the payments made to the Chinese company from $5 to $8 million and to pay 75% of the amount mentioned in the letters of credit issued by People's Bank after the ship leaves Sri Lanka. Qingdao Sivin Biotech's Deputy General Manager Anna Song says the arbitration can only take place in Singapore and that their company has lost faith in Sri Lankan authorities. The company notes that when Sri Lanka initially called for bids, it had been mentioned that the fertilizer should not contain microbes. However, Sri Lanka had failed to provide a methodology by which to quantify zero bacteria or failed to indicate a manner in which all bacteria can be removed from fertilizer. The Chinese company had reportedly informed Sri Lanka on the 12th and 14th of September that it would be impossible to provide zero bacteria fertilizer, but that both parties had reached an agreement that the fertilizer could contain harmless organisms. Citing messages exchanged between a company representative and a ministry official, the Chinese company said the secretary to the president had instructed that letters of credit could be opened tomorrow or so if fertilizer could be sent according to the agreed criteria.
The General Assembly of the Young Chartered Accountants Forum of CA Sri Lanka got underway in Colombo this evening.
Established in 2009, the Young Chartered Accountants Forum was the brainchild of a group of dynamic members who strive to create a platform for the younger members of Chartered Accountants Sri Lanka. The purpose of the Young Chartered Accountants Forum is to uplift the quality of the Chartered Accountants of CA Sri Lanka while endeavouring to enhance the public image of Chartered Accountants. The annual general meeting was attended by senior members of CA Sri Lanka and several others. Today's theme was quote, "Land, the potential of a nation at the centre of the world," end quote.
As young members of a prestigious institute, the responsibility lying on your shoulders are vast. Each and every one of you have a long and vibrant journey ahead. But to succeed in all your efforts and even in the efforts of taking YCAF to greater heights, working together and remaining united is imperative. Although we look up to our seniors for guidance, it is ultimately the dynamic younger generation who will steer the profession and the corporate world in the future. So steer it positively by not talking about change, but instead be the change.
Executive Group Director of the Capital Maharaja Group was the keynote speaker of the event.
Particularly this word potential in your own life and also in this great nation that we've been born into. So the challenge that we are all faced with is not where we are today. It's where we should be tomorrow. And to do that, we have got to understand the potential of this nation. If you just step out into any beach and look out into the ocean, 500,000 plus square kilometers of ocean is ours. Almost 9 times the landmass of Sri Lanka. This is why we like to call it the Sea of Sri Lanka. This is our sea, and unless we start calling it what it is, nobody else is going to give us that respect. And it is full of potential, it is full of resources. And that's the key, understanding our potential. Because if we don't understand our potential, then we don't see the future, and then it's very easy to be part of somebody else's story. Because I feel that this is an opportunity for all of us, particularly all of the young chartered accountants, to take Sri Lanka to its potential.
And with that, it's a wrap of primetime news on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Jamal Ratnayaka alongside our sign language interpreter for tonight, Brian De Cruz. Don't go anywhere. Face the Nation is up next. Take care and good night.